So we just did type 0. That was a different type. Type 1, there are how many questions? 8. I think we'll probably only get through maybe 2 of them, and then we'll continue this lesson tomorrow. Type 1 is when the angle has been given to us. So for all of these questions, you're going to have the word sine, cos, tan, or secant, cosecant, cotangent, and then an actual angle will be given to you. Now, we are not going to be using a calculator to solve these. So I will know when you've used a calculator because you're going to get decimals, but we want exact answers. So it'll be very obvious when you have done it correctly and when you haven't. For every single one of these questions, we're going to find the exact value. That means if you were to plug in sine 315 into your calculator, you would get like 0. Blah, 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 blah. But we're going to give our answer as like a numerator over a denominator, a proper fraction. We're going to include a sketch. We're going to draw theta, beta, and the special triangles, and then we're going to try to solve it. So for every single one of these questions, you will need to draw a grid. I wanted a little bit more space, so I'm going to just come down here and do it. Question A is going to be sine of 315 degrees. So first of all, let's practice drawing our different degrees. We start with 0 degrees here. Then we go to 90 degrees here, 180 over here, 270 over here, and 360 over here. Also, just for funsies, let's go ahead and label our quadrants. So this is quadrant 1, this is quadrant 2, this is quadrant 3, and this is quadrant 4. We're probably not going to do this for every question, maybe just the first few. So it's like repetitive and you guys remember where everything is. Angle 315 degrees. Where am I going to draw that? Which quadrant is it going to go into? Quadrant 4, good. Do these questions need to be done using a ruler? Yes, absolutely. Neatness is very important for these. So you don't even need a ruler. You just need some sort of Presto card or something to do this. That works as well. You're going to go ahead and draw your terminal arm in quadrant 4. Do we need to draw our initial arm? No, you don't. We all know the initial arm starts on the x-axis, but it gets kind of messy if you draw too much. So that's assumed we're not going to have to, we don't have to draw that. Now, we're going to label our theta and our beta. I always start by figuring out where my theta and my beta is going to go. So for this question, and I end up using too many colors, I need to go easy. I need to remind myself to reel it in because it's just like a crayon box exploded. But my theta is going to be from the initial arm all the way to the terminal arm. You're going to draw an arrow that looks just like this. It's your angle of rotation, and you're going to label that with theta, which is what your principal angle stands for. And just on the side over here, I'm going to remind myself that theta is equal to 315 degrees. Sometimes like you can write it on the diagram, but like I said, we're trying to keep our diagrams as neat as possible. So I'm just going to write it on the side. Theta is equal to 315 degrees. I'm going to remember a couple of things that we've already talked about. First of all, this is what the bow tie structure looks like. And all of our related acute angles are drawn inside. I also want to remind you that we have the special angle triangle 45, 45, 1, 1, root 2, and the other special angle triangle 60, 30, 1, 2, root 3. You're going to need to know all of this information to solve these questions. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and finish off this triangle. Think back to the bow tie. It's going to look like this, and our related acute angle will be this little dot over here. So I'm going to go ahead and make a dashed line to show my triangle. This is a right angle. And then I'm going to label my beta to be inside over here. Thank you. Is everyone okay so far? Okay. Now, how do we know what like the side lengths are? We don't have any information about what X, Y, and R are because the question didn't tell it to us. That's okay. We can figure it out using our brains. I wasn't planning to say that, but it just came out. So what we're going to do is if we know theta is 315 degrees, can we figure out what beta is? How do we do that? What's the calculation? So we're going to go 360 minus 315, and that's going to give us a beta of 45 degrees. And because we're not using calculators to do these questions, you can be sure that the only betas you're going to get are 30, 60, and 45. Because if I only stick to those numbers, then we can use our special angles to fill in all the information. Okay, so theta is 315, beta is 45. If we assume that this is 45 degrees, that means this is also 45 degrees. And we are going to use our 1, 1, root 2 triangle. So remember how I said when you memorize it, be ready to use it in any orientation? Here is where you're going to have to practice that. This is going to be 1, this is going to be 1, and this is going to be root 2. But also, we need to figure out our positives and negatives. This 1 over here, is it going to be a positive 1 or a negative 1? Positive 1. How about this 1 over here? Negative because it's going down. And then root 2 always has to be positive. That one right there. Yeah. Okay, let's put all of this stuff together and solve the question sine 315. So sine 315 degrees is the same as figuring out sine of 45, because 315 and 45 are both related to each other. So whatever calculation you do for this, it will also work for this. That was the whole point of figuring out the related acute angle. And the reason why we figured out the related acute angle is because we don't know 315. We don't have a special angle for that, but we do have it for 45. So to finish off this question, sine of 45 is opposite over hypotenuse. And our answer is going to be -1 over root 2. So all of that work just to get an answer of -1 root 2. Can we leave this answer as -1 root 2? We're going to have to rationalize the denominator. So go ahead and do that. Yeah, -root 2 over 2. Now, one last thing before we move on. Does it make sense that when you have sine in the fourth quadrant, it is a negative ratio? So remember when we talked about CAST, I'm just going to make this messy. C-A-S-T. In the fourth quadrant, what is the only sign that is positive? Cosine. So shouldn't sine be a negative answer? Yeah, so it makes sense sine is negative because according to CAST, only cosine would be positive. How can I make sure that you're not using a calculator? Because no calculator is going to give you -root 2 over 2 when you put in sine 315. It's going to give you 0.8 blah, 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 blah. So if you give me a decimal answer, it's just going to be completely wrong. Okay, one more example, and then I'm going to stop talking. I know today's been a long day of me talking. Should we even do one more example? Let's, you know what, just because Ariane gave me attitude, we're going to do one more example. And we're going to go to question C, which is cos 240. Okay, so question C, cos 240 degrees. If you shake this desk one more time. I'm just joking. You're good. All right, let's go ahead and put our stuff in. So 0 degrees, 90 degrees, 180, 270, 360. I'm just also going to write down what the quadrants are. So this is quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. Where do you think 240 is going to be drawn? Quadrant 3. Good. So let's go ahead and draw that in quadrant 3. $240 will be maybe like a little bit closer to here. Not that it matters. So that's my terminal arm. I'm going to label my theta and my beta. Okay, so theta starts from the initial arm and goes all the way to the terminal arm. And that's going to be your angle of rotation, which is your principal angle. So theta is going to be equal to 240 degrees. Now, using that terminal arm, I'm going to go ahead and make a triangle. And if you go back to your bow tie and figure out where the triangle is going to go, it's going to look like this. This is the right angle sign. And my little beta is going to be drawn inside over here. And I don't think I'm going to have enough room for it. So maybe I'll draw my beta first. So beta. And that's your theta. Okay, our next step, once we've drawn our terminal arm, our triangle, our theta, is to calculate what our beta is. So what do you think just use logic. How do you think we're going to figure out what beta is? There we go. We're going to go 240 degrees minus 180 degrees. And because for these questions, I'm asking for the exact value, you have to make sure your beta is either 30, 60, or 45. So in this case, it ends up being 60 degrees, which is perfect. If beta is 60 degrees, we're going to draw in our 30, 60 triangle. So that means this is 30. This is I'm going to use a different color, maybe. So this is going to be 1, this is going to be 2, and this is going to be root 3. Is 1 going to be positive or negative? Is root 3 going to be positive or negative? Negative. And is 2 going to be positive or negative? Positive. It has to be positive. Yeah, we're plugging in these numbers because it's a 30-60 triangle. So it's a special, yes. Okay, and now that we've done all that, we're ready to actually answer the question. So the question is, what is cos of 240 degrees? Cos of 240 is the same as cos of 60 in the third quadrant. You guys were almost done. Just a few more seconds. So we're basically trying to figure out cos of this beta right here. Cos is adjacent over hypotenuse. And so our answer is going to be -1 over 2. We're going to check with CAST to see if this answer makes sense. So if I just write in my CAST, CAST, in the third quadrant, only tangent should be positive. So it makes sense that our cosine answer is -1 over 2. You can always check your answers because you have a calculator right now. If you did cos 240, you should get -0.5. All right, I'm going to stop there. We're going to do the other 6 examples in tomorrow's class. You don't have any homework on this. It's just type 0 questions that are going to be your homework questions. And I'll continue this tomorrow. All right, you guys. So this whole week, we've been talking about the trig ratios for any angle. So we're not just going from 0 to 90 degrees. We're going anywhere in the 360 plane. We started off, first of all, reviewing our reciprocal angles. So cosecant, secant, and cotangent. And we reviewed the special angle triangle. Both of those will be quizzed in tomorrow's class, no calculators. Then we learned how to label our quadrants and all the different angles here. So we're going to do a lot of work with this stuff. We learned how to, if we have a triangle, how to label all the sides by using the Pythagorean theorem to figure out one of the missing side lengths. And then you can talk about the primary ratios and the secondary ratios. In yesterday's class, we learned something called CAST. And CAST is just a way for you to see which one of the ratios is going to be positive in which quadrant. So C means cosine's positive, A means everything's positive, S means sine is positive, and T means tan is positive. And then we also learned something about the related acute angle. So the concept behind that is if I give you an angle greater than 90 degrees, we can't do any calculations with that. So we will take our obtuse angle and we will find another angle related to it that is less than 90 degrees, also known as acute, and we'll use that to do our calculations. Then we learned type 0 questions. And this question is basically when I give you a point and then I ask you to figure out what theta, beta is, and some of the trig ratios. Now, I don't think I was very clear on this, so I just want to review this one more time. And that is when you have your ratios with positive and negative signs, If you were to put those into your calculator, you would actually solve for theta. If you're trying to solve for beta, you need to make sure the ratios are positive. So what you could do is just find the one positive ratio and use that, or you can just pretend like the negatives don't exist. And then when you put it into your calculator, you will find beta. We'll do more calculations with this later, but I feel like this was a little bit confusing. I had given you homework practice questions 2A, B, C, D. Were those okay? Were there any mistakes in the answers? I have a feeling like last semester or last year when I did this, there were some mistakes. So I'm really relying on you guys to just let me know if you do find any mistakes. Then I had told you that I have broken up the different types of questions into like type 0, type 1, type 2, type 3. So today we're going to actually continue type 1. And type 1 questions is when the angle is given. So for all of these questions, you're going to have sine, cosecant, secant, or cotangent, and then an angle. We had done questions 1A and 1C. I'm not going to do them in the order that they're on the sheet because some of them are a lot harder. So we'll just continue down the row and then we'll go on to the next row. Okay, so here was question A, and then here was question B or C. Let's go ahead and do question E. Okay, so for question E, we have tan of 315 degrees. And remember, for these questions, you will not be allowed to use the calculator. So it's very easy if you just plug it into the calculator. But we're not going to use a calculator. I'm also not going to be labeling everything all the time. I think I'll do it for this example. Then after that, we don't have to label our quadrants every time. We don't have to label our degrees every time. So this is 0 degrees, then this is 90 degrees, then this is 180 degrees, and then 270 degrees, and then 360 degrees. And then just one time today, this is quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. If I'm trying to draw 315 degrees, which quadrant is that going to lie in? Quadrant 4. So you're going to take a ruler and you're going to go ahead and draw your line in quadrant 4. And then while I'm here, I'm just going to draw in the triangle. And I'm going to remember that when I'm drawing in my triangles, I am thinking about a tuxedo bow tie. And I now look at quadrant 4, I have to draw my triangle like this. So it just means I'm going to make a dashed line going up. And it also means that the angle I'm going to be looking for is going to be inside over there in that position. Okay, I can't remember the order which we did stuff in. I think after this, we labeled theta and beta. So maybe we can do that. And then we'll figure out the rest. Okay, so let's go ahead and figure out what our theta would be. We start at the initial arm. We're going to swing all the way around to our terminal arm. And then somewhere on the diagram, you're going to go ahead and write theta. And on the side over here, I'm just going to remind myself that theta is equal to 315 degrees. And then in the inside of the triangle, I am going to go ahead and put in my beta. So right over here, that is where we're going to have our beta. Okay, the next step is we need to figure out what the measurement for beta is. So you can look at your sheet if you want, or we can just try to use logic. If the entire circle is 360 degrees and we know theta is 315 degrees, what do we have to do to those two numbers to just figure out the little piece of beta? Good, so we're going to go 360 minus 315, and then we're going to get beta to be equal to 45 degrees. And I kept reminding you guys last class that because we're not using calculators, we need our beta to be a number that is part of our special angle triangles, right? Because if we're actually figuring out a ratio, it needs to be one of the special triangles. So now I know that my beta over here is 45 degrees. That means the triangle that this is telling me is it has to be the 45, 45, 1, 1, root 2 triangle. So I'm going to go ahead and put that information in. 1 is going to go over here. 1 is over here. And root 2 is over here. And then I put in my positive and negative. So this is definitely positive 1. You don't even need to write the positive. But this has to be negative 1 because it's going down. And root 2 is always going to remain positive. So this is 1, this is negative 1, and then root 2. Okay, now what exactly is the question asking us for? The question is asking us if we're tan of 315 degrees. But because we found a related angle, tan of 315 is the same as tan of 45 in this quadrant. So we're just going to look at our triangle and we're going to figure out what tan of this is. Tan of 45 is opposite over adjacent. And so what will our final answer be? Just negative 1. Now, I know it's a lot of work just to get an answer of negative 1, but of course, if I were to give you this on an assessment, I would ask you to draw a diagram. I would ask you to figure out theta and beta, and I would ask you to label it, everything, and all of those would be marks. So something like this would be out of 4 marks. Yay. Negative 1. Yeah, negative 1 divided by 1, and that's just negative 1. Yep. Yes, yeah. I should have probably written it down like that. So tan is opposite over adjacent, negative 1 over 1, which is just a negative 1. Great. So how are we going to do cosecant 300 degrees? Actually, we're going to deal with the cosecant part at the very end. To start this question off, we're just going to do everything like we used to. We're going to figure out where 300 degrees is, and we're going to draw the arm. We'll figure out theta and theta. Now that we're a little bit faster and better at this, we don't need to label everything. Like you don't need to label 0, 90, 180, etc. We know 300 is going to be in the 4th quadrant. Okay, we also know that according to the little bow tie, well, we actually just did this, but it's going to look like this. We're going to have a little right angle there. We're going to measure our theta from here to here. And our beta is going to be inside there. You're going to notice you get a lot faster at these questions, and then they become like really, really quick. So I notice my theta measurement is 300 degrees. And what is beta going to be? Yeah, so 360 minus 300, and then 60 degrees. So now, let me know if I'm going too fast, by the way. I'll actually slow down right here so you guys can. So if that's 60 degrees, this is going to be 30 degrees. And that means this is the 1, 2, root 3 triangle. 2 has to go here. It's the hypotenuse. 1 is always between 60 degrees. And then this right here is going to be root 3. And that root 3 is going to have a negative sign. So I said, this is 1, this is 2, and this is negative root 3. So you'll notice the question is done exactly the same way. However, here's what we have to think of. We know cosecant is related to what primary trig ratio? Sine. So you know how sine theta is opposite over hypotenuse? That means cosecant theta is what? Yeah, and so that's really the only thing. Just at the end, you have to sort of just consider that. Sine theta is equal to opposite over hypotenuse, and therefore cosecant theta is equal to hypotenuse over opposite. So upside down, exactly. So it's going to be 2 over root 3, or 2 over negative root 3 as your final answer. You have to rationalize. Yeah. So 2 over negative root 3. How did we get that? Well, cosecant of 300 degrees is the same as cosecant of 60. They're both related. We just decided that cosecant is hypotenuse over opposite, so it's 2 over negative root 3. And then we have to rationalize the denominator. So our final answer is going to be 2 root 3 over 3. And you can kind of put the negative sign anywhere. I guess I'll just leave it in the denominator. Yep. That. All right, question question B. Here is something we haven't seen before, a negative angle. I'm just going to zoom in. We're going to do question B. Okay. No, remember I kind of did them in a weird order so that we would do the easy ones first. So B is sine of negative 150 degrees. Okay, so to remind you, when you have a negative angle, what that means is when you're labeling your axes, you have to go in a clockwise direction. So you're going to go 0, negative 90, negative 180, negative 270, negative 360 degrees. But the quadrants don't change. So this is still quadrant 1, this is quadrant 2, this is quadrant 3, and this is quadrant 4. So when you encounter a negative angle, the only thing that you're going to have to remember is the angle is drawn in the other direction. Other than that, everything else stays the same. Which quadrant are we going to be drawing negative 150 in? Quadrant 3. Yep. So we go ahead and do that. I'm just going to erase this a little bit. Okay, we still draw our triangle in the same way, so it's going to look like this. How did I know that? Well, remember the tuxedo bow tie. In quadrant 3, it's going to look like whatever you have over there in the bottom left-hand corner. And where are we going to draw our angle? It's going to be in the inside. So right in that position, I know that because of that, your beta is going to have to go in here. How about our angle theta? Well, we start at the initial arm, which is on the x-axis, and you're going to go all the way around, and you're going to label that as theta. Okay, so let's write this stuff down. Our angle for theta has to be negative. Oh, I'm so sorry. I completely messed that up. Yeah, I completely was going the wrong way. Because it's a negative angle, we start at the initial arm, and it's actually going to go in this direction. So our theta is this right here. And beta is this right here. Okay, so theta is negative 150 degrees. What are we going to write for beta? Are we going to write a negative number, or are we going to write a positive number? Good. Make a note to yourself, beta can never be negative. Beta is always, always, always positive. So to do the calculation, you can do it and then just make it into a positive number, or you can just kind of think to yourself, there's 180 degrees, we're traveling 150, so how much is left? It's going to be 30. So I think the easiest way to do the beta calculation is just think of positive numbers. We had 180 degrees, we subtracted 150 degrees, and so beta is equal to 30 degrees. If that's 30, that means this is 60. And then we're going to put in our numbers. So this is 1, 2, root 3. Is root 3 going to be positive or negative? And is 1 going to be positive or negative? And 2 will be positive. Okay, and that's really it. That's the only difference, is the theta goes in a different direction, but everything else is done the same. Let's go ahead and try to figure out the answer. So sine of negative 150 is the same as sine of 30 in the third quadrant. So we're going to look at this number. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. And so what do we get? Negative 1/2. And you can always double check your work with your calculator, because right now you have one. So put in sine negative 150 and you should get negative 1.5. Okay, I want to do one last question with you guys, and that question is question H, because question H has a secant and it has a negative angle, but it's negative 150. Let's do F, actually. Let's do F, and then you guys can do D and H, and I'll put the answer on the screen. So we will skip and do question F together right now. Guys, my hands are sweaty, and so the screen's not moving very much. Hey. No, that's okay. How are you? I said we're going to do F, right? Okay, let's do F. I mean, do we really? Why don't we just go in order? Okay, I'm sorry, guys. Go ahead and try question D and see if you get the answer, and I'll put my answer up here. Which one? For F, it should be positive 150. But I think I'm just going to do it in the order. We'll just do D. Sorry. Negative 225 degrees.
Good afternoon, Stanford students. Please excuse this brief interruption. It concerns our very exciting information regarding our grade 12 valedictorian results.
Ooh.
And I wish to wrap.
All right, we're back. Yeah. A little bit, yeah. Oh, I can't get this arc right, you guys. Beta and theta can be. Yes, it can. They can definitely overlap. So we get 45 here, and then we have 1, 1, root 2. Yep. Yep. Okay, so cos is adjacent over hypotenuse, and that is negative 1 over root 2, which is just going to be negative root 2 over 2. All right, you guys, let's just quickly take up this question. I drew negative 225, which was in the second quadrant. I remembered this time that because it's a negative angle, I'm measuring in a clockwise direction. I put in beta, which I calculated to be 45 degrees. So it's a 45-degree 1, 1, root 2 triangle. I noticed that this number would be a negative because it's going in the negative direction. And then I did cos of 45, which is just adjacent over hypotenuse. And I ended up getting negative 1 over root 2. I rationalized the denominator and I got negative root 2 over 2. Did you guys get that as well? Okay, great. Let's go on to question F. I must say that anytime there's a reciprocal trig ratio, it's a little bit, not even tricky, but just you have to remember that extra step. And then I would say question H is probably the one that's the hardest because it has everything in it all together. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So you guys are trying this on your own as well. So F is cotangent 150 degrees. That's just a regular positive angle. So I know it's going to go in quadrant 2. Okay, and then I'm going to draw a triangle like this. I don't like that. theta is going to be like this. Theta is going to be there. And I'm going to write down theta is equal to 150 degrees. And beta is going to be 180 minus 150, which is going to be 30 degrees. So this is a 30-60 triangle. If that's 30, then this is 60. And now I can put in my side length. So it's going to be 1, 2, root 3. This is a positive. This is a negative. Okay, then I'm going to remind myself, what does cotangent mean? Well, tan theta is opposite over adjacent, which means cotangent theta is just going to be adjacent over opposite. Cotangent 150 is the same as cotangent of 30. And so we're going to go adjacent over opposite. And that's just going to give us a negative root 3. All right, the last question is question H, which is secant negative 150 degrees. Okay, good. I'm glad you're going to do that. Okay, so we have 0 degrees, negative 90 degrees, negative 180 degrees, negative 270 degrees, and negative 360. For some reason, with negative angles, I still write them down just so that I can be sure. And then our angle is going to be drawn in the 3rd quadrant, which is this right here. We're going to finish off our triangle by putting a dashed line like this, right angle. Now, because it's negative 150, I'm going to remember that it's going in this direction, and this is theta. But beta doesn't change. Beta is still going to be right there. So theta is equal to negative 150 degrees. And beta is going to be equal to 180 minus 150. Whenever I'm calculating beta, I just look at all the positive numbers. And that's going to be 30. So now that's 30, this is 60. So that means this is 1, 2, root 3. This is a negative number, this is a negative number. Okay, now I have to figure out what secant theta means. So secant is related to cos. Cos theta is adjacent over hypotenuse. Secant theta is hypotenuse over adjacent. So if we're trying to figure out secant of this, it's going to be the hypotenuse over adjacent. That means the answer is just going to be, what did I just say? Hypotenuse over adjacent. So 2 over negative root 3. And then you definitely need to rationalize the denominator. Did you guys get what I got over here? Raheem, let me see. Okay, it's all in your head, right? So it's negative 2 root 3 over 3. Yeah? All right, I think most of you guys are done. I'll come back to this. Let me just go over your homework. Tonight you will have not quite a bit of homework, but because there was no homework yesterday, you're gonna actually have to do the sheet at the back. So it's handout F, and I know the quality is terrible, and I know it's a little bit hard to see. I think there is a version of it on Brightspace, so I'll make that visible as well. And I'm gonna say, pick and choose whatever questions you wanna do from number 1, number 2, and then number 5. Question 3, 4, definitely you don't need to do 6. And then you can try question 7 as well. So questions 1, 2, 5, and 7, I think would be good. But from questions 1 and 2, just pick and choose because there are a million there. And I'll make sure to make this visible on Brightspace as well.